What happened to Digger? His craft is definitely risky. Digger Maines, known for his appearance on Moonshiners, was a figure who encapsulated the spirit of rebellious self-reliance. The world of moonshining has always been one of risks, thrills, and complicated histories. For years, the show depicted Digger as one of the veteran distillers, an old soul working his craft with a quiet confidence and a strong sense of tradition. His personality and determination stood out on screen, drawing audiences into his life on the backroads of Appalachian mountain country. But what happened to Digger, the man behind the moonshine legend? Where did he go after his years of risking life and limb to make a craft that was both illegal and ancient, one that had been passed down through generations? It was the question that swirled in the minds of fans long after they last saw him on TV. The risky craft of moonshining. To understand what happened to Digger, we need to understand the environment in which he thrived, the craft of moonshining. The history of moonshine is tightly interwoven with that of the Appalachian Mountains, where the practice started as a way for farmers to make a living during difficult economic times, particularly during Prohibition. The Moonshiners were often rebels, resourceful individuals who didn't care much for authority but lived by their own set of rules. The craft itself was dangerous, requiring a high level of skill to distill alcohol while avoiding the attention of the law. Not to mention, the process involved the risk of explosion or fire. Distilling moonshine also required equipment that could be difficult to construct and maintain, like stills and fermentation vessels. A slight error could ruin a batch of moonshine or worse, put someone's life in danger. For Digger, a master distiller with decades of experience, the moonshine was more than just a product. It was a part of his identity, a link to the people who came before him. On Moonshiners, Digger was one of the personalities who brought the practice of moonshining to a mainstream audience. His wisdom and expertise in the craft made him a fan favorite, but it also made him someone to watch carefully. He lived a double life, a public one on TV, where he was an intriguing figure whose craft was rooted in illegal practices, and a private one, where he had to balance the rewards of his craft with the ever-present risk of being caught by law enforcement. But what happens when someone like Digger, who has lived so closely to the edge of danger, suddenly finds himself in a situation where the risks no longer outweigh the rewards? The story of what happened to Digger is one of transition, of reassessment, and of finding peace after years of living on the run. Life after moonshining. The call of peace. After a few seasons of appearing on Moonshiners, the inevitable question arose. Would Digger continue to risk his life making illegal liquor, or would he step away from the distillery once and for all? There was always something that seemed a little different about Digger. While many of the other characters on the show seemed drawn to the thrill of the chase, the adventure of avoiding the law, or the intoxicating feeling of seeing their product sell for high prices, Digger's motivations were more complex. As time went on, the risks of moonshining began to weigh more heavily on Digger. Fans noticed that he was appearing less frequently on the show and seemed to pull away from the limelight. In an exclusive interview, Digger opened up about his decision to step away from the dangerous craft, citing health concerns, the growing pressures of being caught, and his desire to lead a quieter, more stable life. There comes a time when you've got to stop running, he said. Digger had been battling the increasing pressure of moonshining for some time. The reality of evading law enforcement, of knowing that one wrong move could spell the end, was a burden that gradually grew heavier. Although the rush of creating something with his own hands, something that others valued and sought, was undeniably satisfying, it was no longer enough to offset the stress and danger. Another factor in Digger's decision to leave moonshining was his family. Throughout his time on Moonshiners, it was clear that Digger valued his privacy and his connections with those closest to him. As his personal life evolved, so did his priorities. The danger of living under constant surveillance, being a known moonshiner on television, began to take its toll on his family life. The late nights, the uncertainty of whether he'd make it through another day without being arrested or worse. It wasn't something he wanted for his loved ones. Though Moonshiners had given him a platform, it also brought unwanted attention. The show glamorized the illegal activity, but it also made Digger and the other distillers into targets for law enforcement. The show glamorized the illegal activity, but it also made Digger and the other distillers into targets for law enforcement. The more the show aired, the more likely it was that one of them would be caught. For Digger, the risk of arrest, or even a violent confrontation, was no longer worth it. He had built a life outside of moonshining that he wasn't willing to jeopardize. The return to roots. Digger's new path this spate, stepping away from the moonshine game. Digger didn't just disappear into the shadows. Rather than retreating completely from the craft, he transitioned to a different path. One that would still allow him to use his knowledge and passion for distilling, but without the criminal element. In recent years, Digger has become a consultant for craft distilleries, where he helps up-and-coming entrepreneurs with creating authentic, small-batch spirits. His expertise in distilling has made him a sought-after resource for those looking to create high-quality, unique liquors that reflect the tradition of Appalachian moonshine, but in a legal and regulated environment. Digger has also used his platform to educate the public about the history and heritage of moonshining. As someone who spent decades as part of an underground community of distillers, he understands the balance between honoring tradition and adapting to modern times. He's become a respected figure within the craft distilling industry, where his work is celebrated for its authenticity and quality. But for Digger, it's not just about distilling spirits. It's about preserving the craft and its history. In interviews, he's spoken often about his desire to share the knowledge of his trade with younger generations, passing on the techniques that have been handed down through the years. Moonshining is a part of who I am, but it's bigger than just me, Digger has said. It's about keeping the spirit of the craft alive, so people understand what it takes to make something real. He is also involved in various community projects in his hometown, teaching classes on the history of Appalachian distilling. These efforts have allowed him to reconnect with his roots while giving back to the area he holds dear. Digger's journey has come full circle, from living a life of danger and defiance to finding peace in sharing his knowledge and ensuring that the legacy of moonshining lives on the future. What's next for Digger? Looking toward the future, Digger's path appears focused on sustainability and education. There's talk of a potential book deal in the works, one that would combine his personal story with a deep dive into the craft of moonshining. It would be a way for Digger to leave behind a lasting legacy, one that encapsulates the risks, rewards, and cultural significance of his work. But for now, Digger remains content. He's found balance in his life, something that many people in his line of work never do. He's not just a moonshiner, he's a steward of history, a craftsman, and a teacher. Through his work with craft distilleries and his community projects, Digger is continuing to shape the future of the industry in ways that were once unimaginable when he first started down the dangerous path of moonshining. In the end, Digger's story isn't just about the risk of living outside the law. It's about the transformation of a man who learned to live authentically and with purpose. His craft, once risky and shrouded in secrecy, is now celebrated and respected, and Digger is content with the role he plays in keeping the tradition alive. The risks may have been high, but the rewards have been greater than Digger ever could have imagined. Digger's journey is a testament to the idea that even in the most dangerous and rebellious of crafts, there comes a time when growth, change, and peace become the true rewards. It's a story about finding a new path and embracing the future while honoring the past. And for Digger, that path is one of knowledge, tradition, and a quiet confidence that comes from knowing he's done things his way.